It's time to experience the O on the Original Sports Podcast. Here's your host, Mark Maradei.
Hey, Original Sports Podcast with Mark Maradei. I am pleased to present my guest this week, Ed Hunt. Ed is a draft guru of the sorts. So excited to have him on. We're going to talk about some football, guys coming in, draft picks this year. We're going to talk a little bit about guys that he's going to keep an eye on once this college season kicks off. And Ed is also a diehard Pittsburgh Steelers fan. So we're going to get some takes from Ed and find out just exactly how he thinks this Steeler team's going to do this upcoming season. This 2021 season could be Ben's final year. And I don't know if you heard today, Adam Shine released his top 9 defenses. I think he said the Shine 9. And interestingly so, the Pittsburgh Steelers were not one of those teams. And I was kind of like, Adam Shine hates the Steelers. He's constantly bashing them. Did you hear that today?
Yeah, I haven't heard that, but I mean, I there's a lot of opinions on the internet, this and that, and we can disagree and so forth. I mean, there were some questions on the defensive side of the ball for the Pittsburgh Steelers. From a defensive line standpoint, I mean, this team is loaded. I mean, top to bottom. I mean, you go, Tuitt, Hayward. I mean, Tyson Alualu. I mean, that's a front three. And then I like this kid Loudermilk. I don't know why they went that position, but the Steelers, they always go best player available, and I respect that about them.
Absolutely.
So that position is loaded. I mean, Mondo probably won't make the team, and Wormley has been great for them.
Yeah. They were expecting that. He was healthy this year. But before we switch over and start talking more 4-1-2 football, let's go ahead and start with the draft that just happened last was at the end of last April. Now, this year's draft, as you very well know, could produce the next generational group of quarterbacks. I mean, there's some very highly touted guys coming out. There was discussion on, who was going to be number 2 after Trevor Lawrence, and now things are shaking out after the first couple of weeks of camp in a rather interesting way. So, as a draft analyst, who will have the most immediate impact right out of the gates, in your opinion?
I'm gonna say Zach Wilson. I really like him. I know he's not the exact. I never like to do perfect comparisons, but just his game reminds me of Mahomes. The way he moves around the pocket, his pocket awareness, the way he's aggressive with his throws. He finds the right man. He doesn't always go for the easiest throw. I think he's always active. I think he's an elite talent. I really like, to be honest with you, Trevor Lawrence is a prospect that I love, but like Zach Wilson is probably my favorite, since I've been a draft guy, probably my favorite draft prospect that we've had.
I think it's
2017. Like, I know Mahomes. I mean, like, I wasn't as high on Mahomes, but I can't find a better draft prospect than Zach Wilson.
I think it's going to be interesting to see if, and I do like Trevor Lawrence myself, but I think it'll be interesting to see if his college growth and, generational talent, as you keep hearing about him, I think it's going to be interesting to see if that's going to play out for him. He's playing for a college coach who has decided to flip onto the pros after sitting out a few years. He's surrounded him with some pretty good talent. He brought in his old running back in Etienne, and that's going to be interesting. But I do like Zach Wilson myself. I think he's a really solid guy coming in, solid enough that they moved on for Darnold. And I'm not reading good stuff about Darnold, but he's a guy that I was hoping the Steelers would take a flyer on. But obviously they didn't. Apparently Trey Lance his 80-yard touchdown pass to start his pro career, even though it was in the preseason, was pretty eye-opening. Did you hear about that? What do you think about that?
I mean, yeah, I don't want to get overly, like, this is like a time of year. It's almost like you can mark on your calendar, after the first week. I mean, they kind of run these rookie quarterbacks out, and, a lot of these teams that have veteran quarterbacks, they don't quite put their first team out, they're kind of resting their veterans. I mean, especially, especially with moving to 3 preseason games. And so, I mean, these guys are set up to succeed. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, we said it about all these guys. I mean, last year it was Herbert was it, I mean, and these guys were good, but Burrow looked good. I mean, all the guys from last year looked good at this time. It's part of this time of year. All the rookie quarterbacks, all the first-round rookie quarterbacks are going to look good. It matters what happens in stadiums in week 1 when the games matter.
Sure. Wait, philosophically, do you like your rookie quarterback coming in playing right away, or are you a guy like I'm a guy because I coached football forever. I'm a guy who likes my quarterback to learn a little bit, watch somebody else do it, ask a lot of questions, and then start playing. Kind of like they did with your guy Ben Roethlisberger. What's your take on that? Do you think that they should make him just kind of take a step back initially, or throw him into the fire?
I say you get a bridge quarterback and you make him win the job. You know what I'm saying? And you give him a competition. You know what I mean? Competition, iron sharpens iron. I mean, you're a Steeler fan. You've heard Mike Tomlin say it.
Yeah.
You got to make these guys compete. You know what I mean? You can't just throw these guys the keys. You know what I'm saying? I know you drafted a lot of high things around them, and you're going to give them all the resources. And, you're going to let them know that they are the future of the franchise. But you got to make them compete. And that's part of the NFL. You know what I'm saying? Every game is a competition.
Totally agree. Is Minshew going to be able to help Lawrence out, or is Minshew going to be looking out for himself and trying to get dealt? Because it's almost a lock that they're going to start Lawrence to start the year.
If I'm Minshew, I mean, I think Minshew is not so good that he can't be a backup. I mean, I think, there might be a situation where there's a team that doesn't have a quarterback. A great situation for him might be like Indianapolis, right? Where he could jump into Indianapolis. I like Sam Ellinger. I like him, but I don't like him as my starting quarterback week 1. You know what I'm saying? I like him as my number 3 developmental, see what he can do, good guy in the locker room kind of guy. That's not who. And so to be honest with you, I can't even see the Colts going with him, and they've got a big quarterback problem right now.
You think, I know I've heard rumors of Rivers saying that he'd come back if somebody needs him. You think he'll be the guy opening day for them?
It's always possible, and we've seen it many times before.
Yeah.
But it's a mindset. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's to say, hey, like, get off your couch, get off the golf course, come play NFL football. I mean, that's a hard thing to do, right? And so and he's done it before, but I personally, I would rather go with a guy who's been in camp, who's been learning. Between Gardner Minshew and Phillip Rivers, Phillip Rivers probably be better over a long season. I go with Gardner Minshew. See what you have in him.
Maybe the Steelers can dangle Mason Rudolph out there and get like a bucket of peanuts and somebody to carry the beers around in between. I'm not a big guy, but we'll talk about that on Mason. Other positions, people help themselves. What other position was the strongest, in your opinion, in this draft that just happened in April?
Well, something that I see this year, and I watch about 250 prospects a year, is like these defensive tackles are athletes that I've never, like, I can't even believe the speed that these guys run, the way they move, the athleticism they have. And I'm talking about like 5th round guys. You know what I mean? I'm talking about like the Davion Nixons. You know what I'm saying? Like, I thought top end, bottom end. I thought this defensive tackle class was great. And, these guys, it's like, you see them at the Senior Bowl and they got their shirts off, and it's like, they don't look like the defensive tackles of the 90s. I mean, these guys are athletes, you know what I mean? They have athletic bodies. Sure. And, you know what I mean? They may weigh 300 pounds, but they look like, I mean, they are mostly muscle these days. And to be honest with you, the way they can move, the way they can stretch, it's incredible. I really thought this defensive tackle. One thing too, I want to talk about is the top end of this tight end class. Really love Kyle Pitts. I think he's going to be a star in the league. Yeah. I thought Atlanta made the right move, taking him number 4. Go and get the best player available. They dealt Julio. They still have plenty of receiving options for Matt Ryan. That's not a problem from them. I thought it was the right move. Another guy, Pittsburgh Steelers guy, I really like Pat Freiermuth. I think as the season goes on, I think he's going to win the tight end job. I'm not going to say Heath Miller. That's a big word to me. But he has that type of game where he can help you in the blocking game. He can help you as a pass catcher. I was talking to a player from Michigan State, linebacker, and he was saying, yeah, he's the best linebacker that I've played against. You know what I'm saying? He's the best tight end that I've played against. And I said, what about Kyle Pitts? He said, well, I consider him a wide receiver.
Different body types. Freiermuth is a total different body type though than Heath Miller was. Heath was a big guy. He appeared to be a little more wide, a little bit more of a physical guy. Freiermuth is how tall is he? I can't even off the top of my head.
I would say he's within range. He's not 6'7" Zach Gentry, but
right.
What has Zach Gentry done for the Steelers?
Exactly. Although he's not doing bad this preseason, watching him a little bit more intently, because I know that's a position that they're going to need to probably fill after this season with, they're not going to bring back Ebron if Freiermuth starts developing there. So give us a couple nuggets on guys to watch out for. Guys flying below the radar that are going to help their teams out.
Let me give you a name that probably won't start this year, but I think is going to have a good NFL career. It's a guy named Caden Stearns. He's a free safety. I really liked his tape. University of Texas kid. They're saying he's having a really good camp for the Broncos. Broncos analysts are saying it. And, yeah, he's playing behind Justin Simmons, so it's going to be hard to get him on the field, unless you bring in that kind of three safety dime package. But, I think Caden Stearns is that under-the-radar guy that I like, and he's a safety. And to be honest with you, if I was drafting a safety this year, I probably would have waited till like the 5th round and try to get a bargain deal. So I really like Caden Stearns. But I'll give you another name, Amon-Ra St. Brown. He was a 4th round pick out of the Lions, USC guy. Really watch his tape at USC. Great athlete. Just to be able to cut the way he does, the speed, the size. This is a 5-star recruit. And it's not that he was bad at USC, but I don't think he was the player at USC that he could be. Watch him turn the corner for the Detroit Lions.
I think the Pac-12 or Pac-12 or Pac-10?
Pac-12.
Pac-12. I think that's one of the more underrated conferences because from about, middle America over, we don't get to see them. They're late night football. They don't get hyped up. But, man, there have been a lot of good receivers come out of USC in recent years. They've got some really good offensive linemen that are playing in the league. And I like this Slovis kid playing quarterback for them this year. What's your take on that boy?
Gosh, he's in that 1st-round category, but there are guys that I like more from that quarterback. So sort of that kind of underclassmen, guys who didn't come out. Yeah. I'm Sam Howell I'd prefer. Spencer Rattler I'd prefer. Dylan Gabriel. Grayson McCall I'd prefer over him.
The kid at Liberty?
What?
What's the boy's name at Liberty? I'm drawing a blank on him.
I am too.
Yeah, he's a pretty good looking prospect. What do you like about Rattler? And I'm going to get into that, but what do you like about him? He kind of reminds me of, unfortunately, Baker Mayfield type of guy, but what do you see in him that you like?
God, he has a pocket presence and a body control and a confidence in the pocket that reminds you of it. Like it would be like if you were to take an NFL player and put him in a college uniform. That's what I'm seeing out of the Oklahoma kid. He's young, you know what I'm saying? You could tell he's very well coached. He's got great mechanics. He's got a great arm. He's got the speed. He's got the athleticism. He seems like he's pretty confident in himself. He seems like, in the Red River Showdown, he pulled himself out of basically, what he was going through. Sure. Lincoln Riley, every blogger says it, it's like, Lincoln Riley knows how to develop Heisman Trophy #1 pick quarterbacks. But again, this is another #1 pick Heisman Trophy favorite.
It's going to be interesting to watch this play out this year. I also like Sam Howell. I agree with you. He's got a moxie about him. Hey, we've seen a few weeks of camp already, right? Preseason games. A lot of these teams have put on the pads and smacked a little bit. We've got some reports on them prior to that. Who are some draft day winners and losers based on their drafts so far? What you're hearing?
Sometimes it's the second round guys that kind of make me more think about things. One is like I've heard good things about Mekhi Becton and Zach Wilson. But Mekhi Becton sounds like he's doing much better. I mean, you take that big body and you give that technique. I mean, that's an NFL left tackle for a lot of years. And I mean, that was one of the problems that Darnold had, was that he didn't really have that offensive line. I mean, he was seeing ghosts, and one way to stop seeing ghosts is have Mekhi Becton at 100% protecting your blind side. And so that's an advantage Zach Wilson's going to have. One that's, kind of disappointing, and it's not his fault, but Rashad Bateman getting injured. This is a guy who's an awesome route runner, like best route runner in this draft class, maybe the best route runner of the last 2 years. I think he could have come out a year earlier. Probably didn't have as great a 2020, but I thought it was a very Baltimore Ravens, under the radar. It reminded me of somebody Ozzie Newsome would get. Perfect position fit. The fact that he got hurt really hurts him and puts him behind the 8 ball. Good for Steeler fans, but, you never want to see that happen.
They're still getting hyped up pretty much, that Ravens team. And I'll be honest with you. I'll be completely honest with you. If I wasn't a Steeler fan, born and raised that way, I would probably like that Ravens team, because I do see a lot of the similarities in old Steeler football, a lot of defense, things like that, and what they do. Going back to what you were saying about guys being able to run so well on that D line, I think inevitably that's going to be the demise of a guy like Lamar Jackson. I mean, it's just, eventually he's going to make that spin the one way, and one of those big, strong, fast running D linemen is going to get him the other way. And that's going to be it. And as a Ravens fans that I talk to, they have that same concern, to be quite honest with you. So it's going to be interesting as his career plays out and what happens for him. Let's jump ahead a little bit. Okay. We've talked some 2021 draft class. Let's talk 2022 draft class. Really, really early predictions. You haven't even seen guys actually put on pads and play this season. But if you were going to give me your top 5 guys, don't worry about the team that's going to draft them, but who are the top 5 players in college football this year?
We've already said Spencer Rattler, number 1. I think Sam Howell's number 2. And it just is a matter of when a team wants a quarterback. I think he's, number 2 quarterback in that draft. Another guy, Kayvon Thibodeau, already getting NLI money. He's an edge rusher. A lot of people like him. I don't like him as much as everyone else, but yeah, this is a fantastic 5-star athlete. Derek Stingley. I mean, this is a guy who early in his career showed a lot of things, and some said he's even special for an LSU cornerback. And you just think about some of the names that went there, and if he can be healthy and he can play 100%, I would use a number 4 pick on him. Last is Keaton Slovis. I have him number 5. I think, he's going to put up big numbers, just being the USC quarterback. I do think he's a good quarterback. I'd probably put Keaton Slovis number 5.
So you gave me 3 quarterbacks. What 3 teams? Now let's go back to this. What 3 teams in the NFL are going to be looking to take those 3 guys? Because a lot of teams address quarterback this year.
Yeah. Well, Pittsburgh is definitely one of them. The fact that they've basically, gone, with Ben for so many years and haven't addressed that position. I mean, Haskins maybe, Rudolph maybe, but really I think there's a big draft pick that needs to be made before they really find the heir to Ben. There's the Falcons. I mean, eventually you're going to have to replace Matt Ryan. So that's an issue. I think the Colts want that young option. I think the Colts will be one of those teams. The Eagles, I don't know. I don't know if they really have it all figured out. And maybe, you got two, you don't have one. Maybe they say this is the year we got to go get one. So there's 4 teams that I would think off the top of my head.
Interesting. How about a team like Minnesota?
I like Kirk Cousins. I mean, I don't think he's the problem with that team. I mean, he doesn't lose games for you. I think he's a very underrated quarterback. And, I know a lot of Viking fans don't like him. And I know he's not like the flashiest quarterback, but to be honest with you, I liked him even when he was coming out of college.
Okay. Let me ask you this. And I know he was a Michigan State guy and he's been around for a long time. So I guess we'll keep an eye on that situation. But I know you said you watched tape on about 250 different guys. Is there anybody coming into college this year that's going to make an impact right out of the gates on who they're playing for? Underclassmen that are going to, kind of turn some heads.
There's a guy, his name is DJ Uiagalelei. He's a 5-star recruit. He started a few games for the Clemson Tigers. He started that Notre Dame game they lost. He's going to pick up right after Trevor Lawrence. I don't think he's going to be quite Trevor Lawrence, but he's going to be right in the thick of things, and he's going to help them make. They're going to be a playoff type of team, and he's going to be the quarterback running the show, and he's only going to be a true sophomore.
Interesting. Any other guys? Based on, it doesn't even have to be a quarterback, any receivers, linebackers, DBs.
Gosh, there's a I'm blanking on his name, but he's a defensive end edge rusher. He's a 5-star recruit, number recruit in the country. He plays for the USC Trojans and he's from LA. I don't know his name yet, but I watched the tape on him, and I mean he's it's only high school tape, but I mean this guy has all the tools to be that Nick Bosa. I mean that's what they're talking about.
Have you watched tape on Brian Breesy, the kid that was number 1 2 years ago? He's playing for Clemson now, defensive tackle.
I haven't watched him. No.
I was just curious to see your take on him. I watched the kid play since he was really young. And he just stepped right in there at Clemson and was a contributor as a January starter. So it's going to be interesting to see how his career plays out, being that he was a true freshman playing on that team. Share your opinion about the potential change of some of these college football playoffs. I know you probably heard they want to go to a much larger group of teams playing. And some of these teams, we started talking about this, some of these teams changing conferences. Could this shatter the way we view the NCAA? I mean, maybe we won't have five power conferences. Maybe it'll end up being 4 because some of these teams are jumping ship. Give me some of your insight on that.
I still think the Big 12 will be a big conference. I'm sure. I'm sure a couple of these, there's a lot of non-Power 5 conference schools that are really good enough to be, Power 5 conference schools. You talk about UCF and, USF's had some trouble lately, but they've had some good years. You look at Memphis Tigers, Cincinnati Bearcats, there's non-Power 5 conference teams that you could put in a Big 12 to replace those teams. I'm not worried about the Big 12 surviving, but the fact of the matter is that, I feel like as a draft guy, I feel like I'm always watching SEC games and, it's going to be more and more of that. And there's going to be great matchups. It's great for the sport in the sense that, there's going to be those more head-to-head matchups in the regular season. It's going to be more of a playoff atmosphere in there, but it's just like, it's like in soccer, right? In the World Cup when there's the group of death, you know what I'm saying? Like there's that B group or something, and just all the good teams are in it. You put France and Germany and Spain and all of them are playing each other in the group of death. And it's like, then when it comes out to the playoff, they were talking about expanding the playoff. It's like, how is this all going to work? And is it going to be less meaningless? Could you lose a couple games in the SEC, still get into the playoffs, and then make a run? It just it's change. It's different. I would just rather spread the wealth around the conferences.
Do you think they should be more centralized, though, in terms of their location? Like, I really hate that West Virginia goes down and plays Texas and Texas Tech and Oklahoma State. I mean, what's that do to them as a team, as their fan base? I know it's about money. I know it's about being part of a conference, but, what do you think about that?
I mean, to be honest with you, I went to University of Colorado. I still think they should be a Big 12 school. They're a big. I mean, we're a middle of country. Big 12. It's been okay. I guess there's more money. It's a better conference, but I don't know. I mean, to be honest with you, like I just just taking more and more death by 1,000 paper cuts from the Big 12 isn't good. I would like to see. I don't want it to be where it's like there's 3 conferences. It's like it's either going to come from the SEC, or it's going to be Clemson, or it's going to be maybe a Big 10 team, like an Ohio State or a Michigan. I mean, that puts it all on the East Coast, and it just, I would love it. I mean, I would love it for college football. I mean, I live out west. If they really made a commitment to build something out west, to really build a brand, and what I'm saying, I'd love it if it was my alma mater, University of Colorado, but like a USC, they're supposed to be able to recruit in California. I mean, it seems like a lot of these California kids want to go play at Alabama, and who can blame them?
Right. Exactly. Alabama, Clemson. I mean, basically, when you turn on the TV and watch the national championship game, it comes down to just a few teams, honestly: Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama, and every once in a while you get somebody else thrown in there, but, maybe a Notre Dame or whatever. But it gets a little tiresome to me to watch that happen year after year. But I guess until somebody knocks them off of their perch and goes out and out recruits them and out coaches the coaches, and the players outplay the other team. I mean, that's just the way it's going to be there. It would have been interesting, in my opinion, to see somebody like Cincinnati match up with, like an Alabama or a Clemson last year, because Cincinnati had a really fast, aggressive team. And I don't know if they had the talent of those teams, but it would have been interesting to see how that would have played itself out.
You do have a point. It'd be nice to see some of these non-Power 5 schools get in and stuff like that. But I mean, even 6 teams, I don't know. I mean, I kind of worry about the players, and, just how many games are these guys going to play without really, they're going to get NIL contracts, but how many of these games are these guys, the regular guys, going to play without getting, a paycheck?
Do you like when guys sit out of bowl games because they have draft stock and it could hurt their draft stock? There they are, carrying their team, being a highlighted guy the whole season, producing, and then they get to a point where their team is, in a bowl game, and they just don't want any involvement in it.
Nick Bosa, he did that, and, he did the right thing for himself. But yeah, I absolutely love it. It's more that I love it when a guy, has his whole draft stock set in stone, and he says, I'm going to play for my college team. I love that. I love it. He plays for his guys. But it's just, the fact I'm glad these guys can get some money. I hate the idea of a guy being able to sign autographs. And it's like, you could buy it at a sports store. I could probably buy Peyton Manning, University of Tennessee signed helmet, but, Peyton Manning doesn't get that paycheck. You know what I'm saying? Right. And what about Reggie Bush? You know what I mean? Who never really made it in the NFL, but he's a household name, even among non-football fans.
Sure.
He never really got the paycheck because he made it all in college. And then he had his, vacated. And I think, when this all shakes out, he's the victim.
Yeah. And they don't want to reinstate his Heisman Trophy. And, you're right. You're 100% right. And he was a great college, he's probably one of the top 10 college football players ever. I mean, no matter how,
Yeah.
if you watch a bunch of tape from guys back in the day and bring it forward, he really was phenomenal, multi-dimensional, just did things that, quite frankly, a lot of guys try to do, but are more one-dimensional from their perspective today. I think we're going to see that. I don't think we're going to see that, I should say, as much anymore, just because they're getting that money now. These guys are getting that money in college. The kid from Alabama who is cashing in over $1 million already. I mean, he was one of the first guys to start making big cash. I was blown away by that he was getting $1 million. I
mean, it's even a thing. Like, I mean, I didn't know this, but when I first started going to the Senior Bowl, I was kind of like, I saw Justin Herbert over there, and I thought, it would be really hard to, catch him in an interview, being that I'm not, NFL Network or ESPN. But maybe if I said to him, hey, can I give you some money? But of course that's illegal because it's, it goes against it. But I mean, you think about, and I didn't actually do that, so don't incriminate me, but it just like, I asked that question, like, can I do that? Because it's like, at some point it's like he can't take money to do an interview, when he's at basically an NFL showcase. I mean, every NFL scout's there, every NFL GM's there, Mike Tomlin's there, Sean Payton's there, it's the whole NFL's there, and it's basically a pro circuit. You do it for your pro career, and they still get treated like college kids. It was just ridiculous.
Was Herbert the guy at that? Because I was a big Herbert fan. I wanted the Steelers to get him. I really was like, oh man, you got to figure out a way.
We just didn't have the draft capital, but I would have loved that too.
I mean, I saw him as a Ben 2.0, to be honest with you. Let's talk about Ben. Ben, 18, 19 years, professional, coming back after having elbow surgery a couple years ago, still threw for what, 3,800 yards last year, 33 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, led the team to an 11-0 start, and then the team started falling apart because of injury, because they were one-dimensional throwing the ball. Is Najee Harris going to extend Ben's career, or do you think this is going to be it for him?
You know what? I really do think Ben is kind of on his last year. I think they extended Mason Rudolph one extra year because they want him to be that kind of safety net in case they have no quarterbacks left, in case Dwayne Haskins doesn't work out. And, I think Haskins is – I think that bringing Haskins in and bringing in, I might even see them keep 4 quarterbacks just to keep the tryout going. But I really do think Ben is – Ben had a motorcycle accident. He had a bad offensive line in early in his career. He's been through all these injuries throughout his career. He's tough as nails, but just at some point, the guy's body has got to be hurting. I think he gives it one more shot. And really, I think last year was really his last shot, because that's when he had Pouncey and all them. And now the offensive line's depleted. And I just don't think he's going to stick it out to see this offensive line rebuilt. So I respect Ben for coming back, but I think this is his last year.
Chooks jumps from right tackle to left tackle. Banner goes in at the right spot. Trey Turner at that right guard. Dotson, who you said you had some conversation with, probably that left guard, even though he started out a little shaky in camp. Kendrick Green, getting it handed to him recently. Got it handed to him in Philly. Reports out of camp the last few days. Alu's been having his way with them because these guys are starting to turn up their conditioning heading into the last few preseason games. Is this line going to be able to come together to help them have a successful season?
I hate to say it, but I don't think so. Losing to Castro really hurt too. Trey Turner, he's been to the Pro Bowl, but he's had a lot of injuries, and Zach Banner probably will be the best guy on their offensive line. You're talking about Kendrick Green, who I think ideally you'd probably want to have him as a backup to start his career. But really, I don't know, BJ Finney kind of fell off with the COVID, and, that really hurt his career. And it's sad to see with BJ Finney, because it was like, he was a guy who deserved to start for so many years, and then finally he gets this chance, and it's like his career is not the same. And he had that kind of swan song story about how his dad was a big Pittsburgh Steelers fan, and he got his dream to sign with the Steelers. And so I've always wanted to see him start, and he has done well when given the chance, as a starter, in a role. Dotson, great pass blocker. I think he could take on those big guys in the middle. But the fact is that run blocking is easier than pass blocking, and this team's going to need to learn how to run block first. And to be honest with you, if I'm Mike Tomlin, I'm going to teach him how to run block. I'm going to run the ball, and hope that's how they control the clock and stay in games.
It's going to be interesting. I wasn't a big fan of them hiring Adrian Clem. I felt like the Steelers didn't do justice to replacing the offensive line coach. I felt like they had a huge drop off when Mike Munchak went out to Denver to coach. I'm not exactly sure why he left. I know he says his daughter was out there, wanted to be close to his family, whatever. Okay. But I don't feel like they did do justice to that position and bring in another coach. You being a Steeler guy, that Tomlin is very faithful to his guys and he likes to hire from within. He did it with Matt Canada, in fact. Is Clem going to be able to bring that at least growth to this group the way it stands?
Sometimes with coaches, it's not always the big name hire that ends up being the good hire. I mean, remember who was Bill Belichick before, he was the coach of the Patriots. I mean, he was a failure with New York. And, resume doesn't always matter. I mean, that's generally resume gets you the job, but you really don't know until they're given the chance. The thing is, it seems like Mike Tomlin respects him, players respect him, and I just have to believe what they have to say so far. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there's going to be a short leash, and if the offensive line has the kind of year I think they're going to have, definitely got an uphill battle.
You think it was a fair trade-off losing Vince Williams to retirement and bringing in Joe Schobert? How did you like that pickup? I mean, obviously Schobert immediately plug and play, projected to wear the green dot. Rob Spillane obviously wasn't performing like they had anticipated him, did they? What'd you think about the move?
I don't think Vince Williams is really. I think he's kind of lost his ability. I do like him. I thought he had a great career with the Steelers, but it really is time for him to go. And last year was not a good year for him, in my opinion. He plays he's too limited in his role, and when he's too limited in his role, offensive coordinators can figure out what they're going to do with him. So, to be honest with you, I like a guy like Schobert. You can do more with him. I like the pickup. Spillane, I think Spillane's a good role player. I kind of wonder if the Steelers are afraid to have him start over a long period of time, if they like him more as a role player. That's just my opinion. I mean, I'm not sure, but we'll find out in the next few years. But I like the pickup, and I like what they did with the salary cap, going from salary cap heck to pretty much salary cap, where you can get a linebacker when you need one.
They're actually sitting, I don't know what it is, $10, $12 million, even though they brought in former Pro Bowler Trey Turner, former Pro Bowler Melvin Ingram, former Pro Bowler Joe Schobert. They're sitting at $10 or $12 million the way they've manipulated the cap. Do you see them bringing in someone else? Do you see them strengthening that offensive line? Is there a corner out there? Do they fill in both spots?
I mean, I just think if this team hits an injury somewhere, and a big injury always happens. I mean, last year it was Devin Bush or, just somewhere. I mean, they can trade for a guy and fix that issue, whereas a lot of other teams that right now can't really. They just kind of have to roll with what they have on the roster. So I think that gives them some depth going into the season. And, there's going to be injuries, unfortunately.
Which one of those positions do you think they strengthen first, though, that offensive line or the defensive backfield?
Oh, obviously. I mean, far and away offensive line, but I don't know who you would get would really upgrade things. I mean, that's the problem is that, I mean, if they're still out there now, there's probably a reason why they're still out there.
I liked both of those tackles from Kansas City that got cut loose. I mean, I was surprised that they didn't take a flyer, at least on one of them.
Sometimes though, it's not the right fit, or it's not the right, it just doesn't mesh well, or there's just not that familiarity there. I mean, the Steelers like players that they're familiar with. I mean, you notice a lot of their free agent pickups are guys that they liked before the draft, and that they've talked to and so forth, and they just won't go with an unknown.
If they feel like the quarterback position is a solid position heading into next year, where could you see them going in the draft?
If the quarterback position was what?
Is solid. Let's say Haskins is showing continued growth and he replaces Ben, or by some miraculous, somebody waves a magic wand and makes Mason Rudolph the first round grade.
You go left tackle, and I mean, Chucks will be a free agent, and you go left tackle, and then you go guard second round. You got to rebuild that offensive line.
It'll be interesting to see how it plays itself out. I personally am hoping that during the course of the year that they are able to get some chemistry, grow together. Some of the pieces that they brought in are going to be able to help them out in some way, shape, or form. You don't know until they start playing, right? The first offensive unit has not played together until the last day or two. So we're talking the 18th of August here right now, and that opener is the 12th. So they've got about a month together to try and get it right. Let's talk briefly about that secondary. They lost Hilton over to Cincinnati. He was an integral part of that secondary. You can consider him a starter because everybody's trotting out three receivers or an athletic tight end that needed covered. Can they grow with this secondary that they have? I mean, they lost Nelson too, and I'm not exactly sure if losing Nelson was the worst thing in the world. Remember, this team obviously has led the league in sacks the last 4 years. Your take on it?
For me, it's actually not a terrible cornerback group. It's kind of an underrated. The question I had was why would you go with Hayden over Nelson? I think Nelson's younger and better. I like Hayden maybe more as a person, or better relationship, more loyal to the team. But I think that's the question. I mean, Sutton's been good. All right. Sorry, I got bronchitis.
You're good.
Sutton's been good, and I think you can move him inside, and I think that's the kind of secret that they're holding. James Pierre has been great. He's been great in camp. He was great when he had a chance last year. He was a surprise to make the team, especially last year. We didn't get that camp visibility that we had in previous years. But I mean, if he made the team, he probably had a good camp. So I actually roll out James Pierre. Maybe in a two corner set, I probably have Sutton on one side, Hayden on the other. But I probably move Sutton inside and put James Pierre on the outside in nickel situations, and then maybe guy like Antoine Brooks or a guy like one of the safeties, you can move inside to the slot if you need that extra slot depth.
We're going to find out quick because, you got the third preseason game coming up, and you'll see probably a little bit of a flash of what they're going to trot out there against the Bills on September 12th. Hey, give me a season prediction for this Steeler team based on kind of your opinion, everything you know about the guys they brought in, the young guys, what you've heard, read, seen in camp so far. Do they make the playoffs? Do they make a deep run, or do they bow out quickly, or do they not make it? This is a tough division.
I mean, I think they're one of the lucky beneficiaries of the expanded playoffs. I think they go 9-7. I mean, I think they run the ball. I think they control the clock. I think they play good defense. I think their defensive line adds pressure. They're going to be a defense and run the ball kind of team. And, they're going to have a veteran quarterback who, can throw the ball on third down. But I mean, this offensive line is not what they need to win a Super Bowl. And I think they're going to be an early early exit in the first round of the playoffs.
9-8 or 10-7. Remember, 17 games this year.
I would say 9-8. I used to say 9-7, but you're right, 9-8.
All right. So my final segment, my final questions for you. And let me say, I really appreciate you giving me some time. You said you're under the weather, but here it is. I call it, we just got to know. I want to know your 3 favorite football movies of all time and why.
Well, I love Rudy. I was a small athlete. I was the smallest kid on all the baseball teams. I was a catcher. So, I mean, Rudy's my favorite. I think that might be my like pump up movie. So that's definitely one. Remember the Titans is a great story. I mean, it's just how sports can bring people together, and obviously it can be a platform. And it was beautifully done. I still quote that movie with my friends. And a funny one is The Waterboy. Adam Sandler is a pretty funny guy. I always liked the Adam Sandler movies growing up.
Yeah, definitely. Got 3 of my favorites, actually. I think there's very few football movies that have ever been off point. I know when I was coaching, I used to show my kids, Remember the Titans, just, you name it. I brought one of them in and just got us pumped up to get ready and get going. Hey, Ed, I want to thank you for your time. Draft guru Ed Hunt talking with us. Hopefully we can track him down after this season before we get headed to the draft for 2022. Talk about maybe what his Steelers did and what their needs are going to be, and some of the needs of some of these teams who come up short for the playoffs this year. So thanks again. I appreciate you being on the show.
Hey, thanks a lot, Mark. I had a lot of fun.
Take care.
We're going to tell you a story of heroes and warriors who played for the glory. You're about to see it in your stadium chair. You know all your teams, and we can go on for days. It's game time from the original. Highlights and playoffs and very special guests. It's game time on the original Sportscast show by the best.